Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our devotionals today. We're looking at a passage, an intriguing passage in 2 Samuel, chapter 21. It's all about the other giants that David had in the course of his life having to deal with. We're on the last one right now, and his name is Ishbi-Benob. Intriguing name. His name simply means discouragement or someone who brings disappointment. That's a big giant in many people's lives, especially in the realm of the Christian experience, where we've listened to the sermons and we've thought that God is going to answer every prayer in the way that we want Him to answer it. We've been holding out that rod of faith and expecting God to do things. And when God doesn't do what we want Him to do, we end up in this particular situation of discouragement and disappointment. I don't think there's a believer out there that won't acknowledge that. You know, I love listening to people's testimonies, but very often people's testimonies can get me sometimes into trouble as I hear people who have been delivered from great situations, who've been provided for in miraculous ways. And I'm saying, man, that is so awesome. That is so great that it's been your experience. And then suddenly I stop and think, wow, why has God done it for him? And is God ever going to do that for me? And I get myself into this state of despondency, thinking, man, maybe I'm some kind of second-class Christian. Maybe God isn't fair in the way that He approaches people. Maybe even God has favorites, that He will answer their prayers at the drop of a hat, come through miraculously for them. And I begin to wonder if God has favorites. Well, when I think with my emotional heart, that's how I think. But yesterday we spoke about thinking with our heads and not so much with our hearts, because feelings alone can get you into a lot of trouble. But I have a situation, and it's not an unusual one, of a parable in Matthew chapter 20. There's a parable of Jesus telling of a landowner who went out and he brought staff onto his field to do a job. He went out at 6 o'clock, dragged these guys in, and they slogged all day. He went out at 9 o'clock, seeing the job was not likely to be finished, got a whole lot more. He got then others at 12 o'clock and others at 3 o'clock and others just before knockoff time. He was still bringing people in, and he paid the guys who came in last the same as those who came in at first. And we're looking at this saying, is that fair? And my cry would be the same as the guys who came in at 6 o'clock, saying, is it fair? Is it absolutely fair that we should be paid the same as the guys who came in at 5 o'clock? Because in our human situation and in the world in which we live, that would be considered unfair. And I would have been straight to my union leader in no time at all, saying, this is grossly unfair. Fortunately, Jesus was not telling this parable from a fairness point of view. He was telling this parable from the point of view is God not God, that He can do what He wants, when He likes, and how He likes it? Is God not God, that He's not dictated to by our common sense? Is God not God enough that He would say, you know what, guys, this is the way I want to do it? We spoke on the first day about the mystery of God, how God's will and His way is mysterious to us. And when we try and make head or tail of that which is not meant to be made head or tail of, we get ourselves into a lot of trouble. And so when we think of how God, in His mysterious, sovereign way, does what He mysteriously and sovereignly wants to do, we can sometimes get ourselves into a bit of a tiz until we begin to think with our heads and not our hearts. There's a great place, and I don't think we think enough with our hearts than we should. I think there's however, the rational approach that says, let me work this thing out in my mind. And then I'll go back to an Old Testament reading, and I think about, why would God allow this to happen? Is there a purpose in Him not answering my prayer or giving me the same answer to prayer that some other guy got? And I find that there actually is. Think about this. In Isaiah chapter 45, verse 9, we have the story of the potter, how the prophet goes down and he watches the potter at work. And he sees the potter taking his clay and he's smashing it up, and he puts it onto the wheel, and he churns the wheel, and then he's making a pot. And then all of a sudden he stops and he takes that stuff off again and he kneads it and he melds it and he whacks it and he gets rid of all the lumps in that thing. Then he puts it back on the wheel and he continues to make the pot. He does this a number of times. And when God does not answer our prayer or live up to our expectation of him, it's like that potter taking off the wheel. And the clay is crying out to the potter, this isn't fair, that you keep taking me off the wheel. And the potter just quietly keeps taking it off the wheel, getting rid of the impurities, getting rid of the blemishes, in order for that pot to be made perfect, We know it's going to be made perfectly because God makes it, but to be made perfect means that the impurities have to go. It means that our faith needs to be tested. It means that we have to pass certain faith issues that are not issues of feeling, but are issues of faith that come out of our heart. And the depth of our faith is now not just some superficial belief. It has become a deep-rooted conviction that God is good even when life is not good. People, he's not being unfair. He's just being God. So let's work along with him. Let him get rid of the impurities. Let's cooperate with him so that we can become the vessel that God really wants for us to be. It's never comfortable on the potter's wheel. It's not meant to be. It's the potter's wheel. And God is shaping you and shaping me to become the vessel he wants us to be. And that's not always a comfortable experience. But let's just suck it up. Let's just make sure that we're thinking good thoughts. Let's make sure we understand the bigness of who God is and that God's plan for us is always good in the big picture. Think about that today. God is not unfair. He's good, even when it seems the other. Have a great day. Bye.